Hey guys, for the extra Sunday content, as well as bonus weekly content on top of that, go to our Patreon link in the description and find the Black Kluge tier or higher and subscribe.
Would you pretend that I am Bahati? I'm sitting here. I'm going to be honest with you. It's hot in the garage. I'm wearing a bra top. And I only have panties on. I'm being honest.
Can you go a little slower? Just talk about it.
You have underwear on under that robe?
I do. That's all I have on, though.
Oh, my God. So, wait a second. You're in your garage. Bahati is... I'm Bahati. Leave it alone. You know what? You're doing just fine. I should only look like you. All right, so I'm Bahati. We're in the garage. I'm bathed. I'm moisturized. I've completely shaven for you. And I'm sitting here listening to my husband.
Gross.
I've had dinner at Mar-a-Lago with Donald many times. Not at the same table. But he would come over. He would give me a tour of Mar-a-Lago. I've been there. I told you, it's like heaven. Oh, it's hot. I just burned my mouth. Dry oatmeal. I need...
What? Oh.
On it. Where you could just put them in your ear and, like, they'd be Bluetooth or something.
Because I can't even afford to buy socks anymore, you know.
No. Well, all right. Well, hey, I'm glad to hear you're doing okay, and I have my routine. And the days go so fast because I just sit in my room and entertain myself, like when I was a little boy.
Time means nothing.
Yeah, no such thing as time. If I didn't have to shower and eat, I'd just sit in that room. I'm telling you, it's that narcissism where you think the whole world revolves around you and you're entitled to do whatever you want. But, you know, when you're a football player and you're used to being catered to and you're the most famous football player in the world, you can get caught up in that. And then when your wife says, hey, you know, you need to take the garbage out and drive the kids to school, you get resentful and you go, don't you know who I am? You know? I can't get that image of your dad playing piano with you on with you on his lap. It's just, I don't usually feel stuff, so this never happens to me.
Welcome, guys, to QF, a podcast about Howard Stern. I'm your host, Fillmore, a.k.a. Jim Fix, and with me is Sam, and we've got Jammin Jim Florentine as our guest. Thank you for joining, Jim.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for using my nickname that I used over 30 years ago.
It's got that, I don't know, it's got that rockin' sound. I don't know what it was. When did you drop it? How soon into your career did you drop that?
Probably about 3 years in. You know, before I did comedy, I was DJing. I was DJing on the radio. I was on college radio. Then I had my own morning show at this little station in New Jersey. I was DJing in rock clubs. I had a wedding business where I was DJing there. So everybody always had a name then. So I was like, all right, Jammin Jim. And it just stuck. And I had headshots for some reason. I don't know why I had headshots when I wasn't even doing comedy. And then when I started doing comedy, I'm like, well, I might as well just stick. I'm not going to pay for new headshots, so I'll just go with this name.
So when you were DJing and had headshots,
I don't know why. I think maybe because I was trying to act. I think I was trying to act too, maybe.
That was kind of a thing though, like of the time. Like I just remember people having headshots during that time, like a lot of excess headshots. That was a thing. When you were DJing, and you know how you like really love music a lot and rock music, especially with, you know, that metal show and everything. When you like heard the Stern show and you heard Howard talk about music, what did you think?
Well, I knew he didn't like metal, and K-Rock, I was in New Jersey, so K-Rock would play like the worst songs as soon as he was off. Me and Don Jamieson would guess every time, okay, it's going to be the Chili Peppers, Suck My Kiss, or Pearl Jam Alive. It was the same fucking songs, or Man in the Box by Alice in Chains. It was the worst. As soon as he went off the air, Fred gave those plugs. Yeah. You had to run to shut the radio off. It was so bad.
Did you kind of get this feeling of like he didn't know music?
Well, I get he knew some, I guess, but yeah, I mean, not everybody's into it like I am. I totally get it. Not everybody's into like pro football like I am too. So I don't fault him for that, but he definitely wasn't in the metal like the way I was.
Right. He was, I mean, well, as we all know, look, we're an anti-Stern podcast and we think he's a fucking poser from the get-go, but he was always into like rock bands. And what were rock bands at the time? Well, they were all the hair metal bands before grunge kind of destroyed them for a short window of time there. So we didn't expect him to be into like, you know, album cuts or, you know, into Corrosion of Conformity or any like, you know, Five Fingers of Death or anything like that. So, yeah. I mean, you went in because you loved the comedy. You loved Stern, the show as a whole. You didn't care if he really liked the music or not.
You know, 99 out of 100 people I meet don't like the music that I like. So I don't hold it against anybody. You know, I'm the only guy in my neighborhood wearing an Accept shirt, just, you know, balls to the wall from 1984. So I get it. I'm like, all right, I don't blame you for not liking it. You're a grown up. You shouldn't.
Yeah. Just real quick, Sam, I'm just going to explain, guys, to the Patreon fans specifically, a lot of and I'll tell you, Jim, straight up, a lot of the questions are kind of warping time. So if it seems like we're going all over the place, it's because the questions also came from all over the place, and we have our own as well. And we're going to play some clips. First question I got is from Isaiah C. And he asked, whose idea was it to keep the relationship between you and Robin under wraps even a couple days after the breakup? My understanding was she broke it on the Bubba show, and Howard got a little pissed that he wasn't, you know, he wasn't in on the knowledge. Was it meant to be kept under wraps, or was it just organic?
I told Sam, I said, I got to go back and like write notes, because I know you guys are going to go back, because I forget all of this stuff. Like, I'm
sure.
like, you know, I don't know. I know it sounds like new agey shit, but I don't live in the past. I'm like, whatever happens. So I wrote down a bunch of stuff, like just remembering, but I know it came out on the air like the next day. I'm pretty sure it was over the weekend, or maybe on Monday.
Yep.
I remember maybe like she said it on the news or something like that. I thought it was in a news segment.
No,
or was it on Bubba's show?
She broke it on Bubba's show, and then there was a whole thing on. He was pissed because he wanted that news on his show, obviously.
And then even go one further, I was listening to Don Jamieson on another podcast, and he said that you went over to his house after the first date and said that she made you go to like some vegan restaurant and spent $300 on a bottle of wine and $600 total.
Well, look, you have to understand, I am complete white trash. There's no question. I'm just a Jersey dirtbag. I'm like Artie, but like not as many problems as Artie Lange.
How did that feel though? Like when you're like, okay, so I'm taking out Robin, and then you spend like $600 total. And I remember he said on the podcast, Don Jamieson, he was like, we were laughing because you're like, Jesus Christ, this vegan restaurant, and
it's going to break you.
I just remember I said, let's go to dinner. And then I'm like, you know, I know Chipotle. I have a card. I could get the vegan bowl with the 10th one with the punch card, but I'm like, I don't know how I could pull this off. So I said, why don't you find a restaurant in New York? I said, I'm not familiar with the restaurants in New York. I eat at the Comedy Club, the shitty food at the Comedy Club in New York.
So did Gilbert. Right.
We all do. Then we take it back to the hotel room. Can I get seconds? I know, we're scumbags. So I didn't know. So I just remember I said, listen, and she was a vegan at the time. I said, can you recommend a restaurant and we'll go there? I'll make a reservation, all that stuff.
Right.
And I remember she saying, okay, this whatever restaurant it was. I said, all right, perfect. We'll go there. I don't remember the bottle of wine being $300 though, but I just remember I didn't even know how to pronounce Merlot. I thought it was Merlot. I swear, I thought it was Merlot. I asked the bartender, I was sitting at the bar before she got there. I go, is it Merlot or Merlot? He's like, it's Merlot. I go, yeah, I was just joking. I'm like, all right, then now I know.
So right, honestly, hold on. Honestly, you never had some chick that was, you know, thought she was hot shit and she did know these things and you never came across that word?
Maybe, but I just wanted to make sure I didn't sound like an idiot. Possibly, but no, I had long hair.
He's not drinking Merlot.
I had long hair, you know, hanging out, you know, dating strippers and hairdressers and crazy chicks. So it wasn't like, you know, so I never, you know, girls drank vodka or just beer.
I can attest to you drink beer. You drink like a beer, and you're like very not nurse a beer, but like you don't do shots. You're not like
No, I'm not a big drinker. I mean, I like to get I always wanted to get a little buzz on, so I had the balls to talk to girls. Because I was always socially awkward, so I had a few drinks just to get some balls, so I could, to talk to women. I never wanted to get drunk and have a big hangover the next day. That was never my thing. But I like a nice little buzz.
So, well, that leads me to my next question, which kind of goes hand in hand with your relationship you have with Dice, but I'll get to that part a little later. You were on tour with Levy, who was, let's say, well, not a notorious teetotaler by any means, but then also Artie and certain other people who would just drink like fiends. How did you, like in a business where people get addicted to just everything, how did you manage to kind of stay off that? Was it you think it was your upbringing, or do you think you just were like, no, I'm stronger than that shit? It was all about will.
Or whatever you think.
Yeah.
I never had an addictive personality. I'm lucky. I got a couple family members are big gamblers, and, other guys drink, not alcoholics or whatever, but I just never had that gene of addicted to anything. So I'm lucky. And to me, it was all about the show. Like, I'm going to work, and if I only have to work 45 minutes a night or 30 minutes or 15 minutes, it's like I can at least be professional before I go do my show. And you get in that habit. I saw guys that would have to drink, get a nice little buzz on before they go on stage, and they were doing it 6 nights a week. And that just wears on you, then you're going to have no liver by the time you're 35 years old. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I got to take this serious. I love this. This is great. I got paid to tell dirty jokes. This is fucking awesome.
Yeah. But it's rare considering the, immense amount of tragedy that goes on with comedians that you've seen in your lifetime that were great that have passed away. So especially when I look back on, there's still a YouTube video out of you in Jim Norton's apartment, like touring it like Cribs, but it's like there's mold.
I told you I'm white trash. There was mold on our wall. We were paying $800 a month, and it was me, my girlfriend, and Jim Norton living there. So we were splitting $800 a month. There was a place right outside of New York City, and it had mold on the wall. So I went to a flea market, and I bought these paintings for like $2 just to cover the mold. So I hung it right over the mold.
Right.
I didn't even tell the landlord. I just said, I'll just hang these paintings. I'd like $2, a garage sale or flea market or wherever. I'm like, it's fine. Nobody could see the mold.
Well,
but it's so bizarre to me that you come from like you're doing that, like you're living this way with Jim Norton, who is an ex-addict, and you're living how you do, which is like stable compared to most comics. When you started having success in kind of going through the trajectory of your life and timeline, how did it make you feel when you saw other comics who were very talented, like grappling with addiction or dying from addiction?
Yeah. I mean, I was close to Greg Giraldo. We had the same manager. He started a little later than me in my career, but he would open for me all the time until, he got amazing and stuff like that. No, I've been around a lot of it. I don't, by the time I was living with Jim Norton, me and Jim pretty much started at the same time. He was sober. He got sober when he was like 17 years old. Right. So I didn't meet him till he was like 23, 24. So it wasn't that big of a problem living with him. But no, I don't know. I just knew, and I lived in Jersey, and I knew, like, if I lived in New York City, I know I can drink, and I know I could have a drinking problem, but I just have to figure out. So if I lived in New York City in a little apartment, and after the comedy show, I could just hang out and drink till 4 a.m. and take a cab home or the subway, I'd be an alcoholic. So I said, if I have to drive back home to Jersey, I can't have more than 2 drinks. Yeah. And I was like, I got to live in Jersey. I got it because I don't want to. I know I'll be out till 4 a.m. I know I'll be like, I'm back in college and just partying. There's girls, coming in town. They would come to the Comedy Cellar from all over the country just to see comics.
What do you think sets aside like your personality to understand that from such an early stage of your career to other people who were, right on the cusp or even breakthrough artists in comics? What do you think that is, that they can't see the same thing? Most comics are damaged. They got a fucked up past. Mine wasn't that bad. So I think maybe that helped. That it just, I don't know. I never needed to drink or do drugs to ease the pain because I was never really in pain. So I never really, had to deal with that. And to me, it was like I said, I don't like waking up in the morning with a hangover. I mean, of course, I've done it a million times, but it's like, it's not fun.
You know, and it's just like, if I'm working an hour a day, the least I could do was take it serious. I mean, I used to cut lawns in Florida before I did comedy and before I even DJ'd. I was cutting like 30 lawns a day in August. It was horrible. I had like the worst jobs at construction sites and, you know, pulling down sheetrock and doing all that stuff. It's a horrible job. So when I started doing comedy, I go, I'm going to take this serious because this is what I want to do.
I read an interview of yours. You said that you would be on a construction thing or a lawn thing, and you would, when Stern was on, you would make them turn down whatever like machines so you could like listen to the show.
No one was allowed to run any power tools when the show was on.
That's Stern show.
Yeah, when Stern was on, and then when he went to commercial, because it was like 10 minutes of commercials, then you could run the power saw, you can run the friggin' chainsaw or whatever. So it was, no, you have to leave them off until the commercial. So, you know, that was regular radio. I think he was just got on K-Rock. I was listening back maybe a year when he was still on NBC is when I discovered him.
Wow.
And then when he went over to K-Rock in the afternoon. So, yeah, I was working construction sites just listening. And, yeah, we had the radio cranked, and then, you know, we'd go to commercial, then we'd get our work done.
Well, yeah, like at one point later on when he was still on terrestrial, you could probably build a floor in the time it took for him to come back from commercial break.
Oh, yeah. And it was like 13, 14 minutes sometimes between the breaks. So we knew that to time that. Yeah.
So to tie that in, Jim, just a little bit, this isn't a question I didn't have. This was a question I didn't have, but now I do. Would you say that the Jersey comics, they were a little tighter bunch than, let's say, the Boston scene or the New York scene or LA scene for that matter? Do you think you guys, that was like us against the world kind of thing? Or do you think you just managed to meet a bunch of great guys at the right time?
No, the Boston guys had a big bond. You know, all those guys, Louis C.K., Dane Cook, Robert Kelly, Nick DiPaolo, all those guys. There was the Boston and Patrice O'Neill. Boston has the best comics no matter where they came from in the whole country. But then we were Jersey, so the New York comics didn't really just respect us. Me, Jim Norton, Rich Voss, Bob Levy, because they just thought we were like dirty, lowbrow, which we were. But, you know, we just didn't go up there and tell like monologue David Letterman jokes. You know, 37% of people say that, you know, women masturbate, and the other 73%, I didn't do those jokes. I'm like, those jokes stink.
So the one of the questions somebody had here was also tied into the Robin thing, which was, did she ever try to get you involved with her fads? And at that time she was doing the fad dieting
and charities.
Charity, you did get involved. He did, but there was also someone asked about the cults. The only cult she was involved in was way before you got in tow with her, and then way after. So I imagine it would only be the vegan stuff.
Yeah. What did you
there was nothing going. There was nothing at that time. You know, she wasn't. I know she was just a vegan, but other than that, it was there was nothing she tried to get me into. I was doing pretty healthy. I was going to some like naturopathic doctor and stuff. I was having some stomach problems from drinking all these friggin' energy drinks and stuff. And the guy put me on he put me on like a vitamin program and shit like that. And that was after the death of my ex-girlfriend. So I was pretty fucked up at that time.
I was thinking about that too, like with you and your relationships. It was interesting to me. There was this article. It was called The Light and Darkness of Jim Florentine. I believe it was a fan who wrote it. It was back in 2020. And it was this rundown article. I probably don't even know if you've even seen it because it was in an interview. Yeah, it was a very interesting rundown in 2020. And the one thing that stuck out to me, well, there was actually multiple things, but one of the things was, how did you deal with, like, just as your personality and persona came off and how we got to know you in the public eye, that you had these tragedies, whether it be the suicide of your ex-girlfriend or the breakup of your marriage and your ex-wife who cheated on you. How did that feel being somebody in the public eye? Like, that is something so incredibly different than, even though you're in the public eye, you know, like, because you're a comic, that level of scrutiny. How did you deal with that and cope with it?
You know, it was 2006 was with my ex when she died. So it wasn't, you know, TMZ and stuff like that. It wasn't really that, it didn't really get out there that much. I know that I know Jim Norton talked about an Opie Anthony and stuff like that, but it wasn't like if it was today, it would be all over the place. You know, even if it was 10 years ago, but for some reason it kind of went under the radar.
But it
You know,
didn't
that-
with radio people, though, like us.
Well, the radio people, yeah, because the radio people knew. I think Artie brought it up on the air because I talked to Artie. Artie knew her really well. Howard knew, everybody knew her really well. She was around the show a lot. Yeah, Jade. So everybody knew her. Gary, all the whole. We'd go out all the time. We'd be at Scores or wherever, these parties, Artie's birthday party. So she was around a lot. They all knew her. So I called up Artie and told them. And I said, look, just say it on the air. I don't care. I don't want to hide this and then it comes out. I go, and he's like, you sure? I said, yeah, because I wasn't going to go on the air. And then I told Jim Norton to do it on Opie Anthony because Jim, we were roommates. Jim wasn't my roommate at the time. He wound up moving out. So,
but that's like a choice. And I think that's an interesting choice for you because it's a little bit different than how you put yourself out there to that point. So what made you decide to be, I guess, so forthright about these things that happened?
Well, because I knew people were going to find out anyway. I'm like, what am I going to hide? It's going to come out. And then I got to deny it, or what am I going to do? Everybody knew her and stuff. So I was like, it's just better to be honest, get it out there. I always knew. I said, look, this will get out there. People will talk about it for a couple of days, and then Britney Spears will do something, and everyone will be talking about that. Yeah. Let everyone talk about it for a couple of days and they'll move on. That was my philosophy with it.
I got a plug to the audience. If anybody hasn't seen it, go to Jim's website. I don't know if you've put it on YouTube now for free or not, but it's I'm Your Savior was the special that came out of the story, The Aftermath. And except for the ending, which obviously now you'd probably want to forget. It's a great special, guys. And he uses like slides. And it's a great
book. I have this book.
Oh, I don't have the book, but I did watch the special when you released it because I was fascinated because you made the rounds, Jim, talking about it on different shows. And I thought that would be a great story. Like if you just told that story, it doesn't have to be about comedy necessarily. It could be, inspiring for some people. And I think maybe I just want to know on some level, did you feel that this would help people who went through, having to deal with someone's suicide, like a suicide of a loved one? Did that part of that go through your mind?
Absolutely. I did. And, look, as a comic or a musician, if something big happens in your life, a divorce, a death, or even something really good, whatever, you write an album about it. You write about it. It might take time, but that's material. So I was like, I knew I wasn't going, I can't wait to write about this. I don't know if I ever was. I remember I couldn't write a joke for like 4 or 5 months after that happened. I just couldn't. I had complete writer's block. And then I said, I just want to do a show. Yeah, because I couldn't come. And I was like, man, I don't know if my career's over because I'm just doing old jokes when I went back on a tour. And I'm like, I always like working on new material, and I just couldn't come up with anything. And then I started writing like a book about it. And I said, I'm going to try to see if I can do a one-man show because I'd always see Colin Quinn's one-man shows. They were always amazing. And I talked to Colin. Colin's like, you got a great story. Write it out. Colin helped me shape it up. And he's like, go do it in these little theaters in New York, So I said, I just want to get a message out there, but no one wants to talk about suicide. So it's a weird death where people just keep quiet and they don't know what to say. So I figured if I talk about it, there's so many people that went through it, whether a cousin or somebody in the family, and like, wow, thank God you talked about it because nobody wants to talk to me about it. I feel alone and isolated.
I felt that so fascinating. And then to compound that in even more fascinating and how I got to actually message and talk to you was your second relationship with your ex-wife. You gave this interview with Allison. I forgot her last name. She was Rosen. And she was with the Adam Carolla show for the longest time. And so you gave this long form interview about what happened with your ex-wife and how the infidelity happened and everything that was playing out. And you were so brutally honest with it in this interview. And during the time when I listened to it, I was going through something similar and I felt so moved that I remember writing you on social media and saying, this is amazing. This is like before I had a podcast or anything. And just saying exactly how appreciative I was of you sharing this experience, because I feel like it's something that's you kind of like take in shame for some reason, even though, everybody's at fault for something. But there's just some things that are so fucked up that you're just like, I cannot believe this happened. And so I felt that way. And I was like, oh, I'm going to say something. And you were so kind. You wrote back. And
let's stop right. You were hot. That's why I wrote back. If it was Fillmore, I would have deleted the email in 2 seconds. So let's come on.
You're
at least we know he's heterosexual. Well, I mean, the thing was, there might be a little Catholic guilt going along with that innately anyway. Yeah. But the one thing I wanted to play was a little clip here. Artie, he's actually talking you up a little bit, and you showed up on the same wrap-up show. So just let me play this clip.
I told Robin this off the air after the show. Jimmy is honestly one of the best people I've ever met through comedy or through anything, just in general. But he's not one of those comics we talked about yesterday that roots for you to fail. He's very helpful to comics. And I mean, yeah, you know that, right?
Absolutely.
And because of that, he's very disarming. It's like you can't offend him. He's a nice guy. So I wasn't really looking to bust his chops. I figured I'd get a few one-liners in, and that would be it. I didn't think it was going to be bad. You know.
See, I didn't want to do we'll get into the Shuley thing in a minute, what Shuley did, but I didn't want to be that guy that throws Jim under the bus. But I really wanted to go in today and talk about one of Jim's first ever appearances on the show. He told this phenomenal story about banging a chick in a bathroom, and she fell and hit her head, and he hit his head. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
He was banging a chick in a bathroom at like some shit club, and she fucking hit her head. And I was just like, where'd that guy go?
And yes, I got a couple of those road story type clips, but we're more than happy to get them from the horse's mouth. But the reason why I brought that up is because Artie's like, he's such a genuine guy, and we love him. Like QF loves him, the whole family loves him, and we're wondering, do you still keep in touch with him? We know he's keeping a low social media profile, and we're like, look, if interviewing him we don't want to interview him if what he needs to stay clean is to just not do comedy and not do interviews, we'd rather not have the interview. But do you still keep in touch with him, and do you know how he's doing?
No, I know he's back on Cameo, which is good. I know his drug court is over. It was like a 5-year drug probation. It was like really tough.
Yeah.
I know that. So he that's why he didn't want to leave the house, basically, because he was afraid he would mess up. And I know he had I'm pretty sure he had a piss test like 3 or 4 times a week, being like, Patterson, New Jersey at 7 a.m. They'd call him like that night. And so it was really tough.
Yeah.
And we have the same agent. But I don't ask too much because I don't want to be the one, if he tells me and then all of a sudden it gets out there, he blames me. But I hear that, he's done with the drug court and he's back on Cameo. I did his podcast when he came back for a little while, and then he went back down under. So I don't have his phone number. I haven't talked to him on the phone. I talked to him on the podcast, and that was it. I mean, if we ran into each other tomorrow, we'd hang out for hours. But
yeah,
I don't know what's going on. He's probably just still laying low. I don't know if he's ready or not, but he's clean. He's I don't know where he's living. I think he's still living in Hoboken, I'm pretty sure. And, he's out of the drug court. So now he can pretty much go live his life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to change subjects from Artie, so I want to get back to that. But in this clip, what we're playing, did you ever, especially during the #MeToo era, have this moment of like, holy shit, we're done? Like,
after telling all these great stories on O&A. And
how did you feel when that was happening?
Well, yeah, I mean, because anybody could come out of the past and say something about you. You just don't know. But I got to the point where my career's on the downside right now. So what are they going to do? What could they take from me at this point?
I don't know. They were taking crap from Aziz Ansari for going on a date, for Christ's sake.
Well, I know it was a bad date. Exactly. But, he had something going on.
But that's my point. That's my point, though, that it's like, wow, that was so crazy. Like, it was just such a manic, like, you passed the Rubicon from your point that you were supposed to be doing with this supposedly feminist movement.
Yeah.
So what did you think of that? Like, when comics started kowtowing kind of to this, I guess kowtowing in a way where it's like, okay, we're just going to completely throw men under the bus and everything they did before this moment and disown it.
It was horrible. Because it's like, okay, so, but a woman can just completely, blow off a guy and be mean to him, and there's no repercussions there. Because a lot of it was just them being mean to women. Like they used them, they have sex with them a few times, and they didn't call them back. They blocked them, and they just, all right, get out. I got to get up in the morning. I got an early flight. Just leave. And the women felt disrespected. So a lot of it was that, so it's like, okay, so he was a dick. So now you're going to bring him down and trying to ruin his career. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I was never a dick. So hopefully, but if something came, I'm like, hey, I know I didn't do anything wrong. If someone wants to make up something, then they can make it up. But
amazingly, you survived that scandal, or any scandal during that period, which is awesome.
Right.
I think.
I mean,
but like I said, I didn't have a lot going on.
But you don't have a scandal. But it's like, you're always just in the back of your head thinking, who's going to come out of the woodwork to destroy me for some press? You know what I mean? Well, when you look at something like Chappelle, what do you think about that? Especially when you have somebody like Chappelle, who's so amazing and unique, and then he's getting all this blowback, and like somebody like Patton Oswalt comes out on Instagram and says I'm
signaling.
Sorry for actually sticking up for the guy who's been my friend for so many years. What is that? How do you feel about that?
That's just Hollywood crap. Look, Chappelle knows what he's doing. It's very calculated. He knows to make the trans jokes, and people are going to realize he has another special on Netflix, a 7th one in 2 years. And that's the way he's going to get it out there, to get that buzz going. He knows no one's going to bring him down because he's Dave Chappelle, and also the color of his skin in this day and age. They're not going to bring him down. There'll be 20 trans people that are going to be mad at him, but it's 20 people that are bitching about it, and that's it.
But then even though that's great that he has that self-confidence, and I hope that keeps going, because I think it's important. His voice is important. He, to me, is like an equivalent of like what Patrice O'Neal would have been. That's how I feel about him. Like he's on that same level. Well, and I wonder, what is Patton Oswalt like? What do you think about that person who had to just put their nose in this, even though they're friends with that person, and post something like that? How do you feel about that?
Well, look, Patton lives in Hollywood, and he still gets casted and stuff. So you have to follow the Hollywood playbook. That's basically what it is. If you want to stay in Hollywood, you have to go, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hang out with my friend that I've known for 35 years because he made some trans joke. I shouldn't have, posted that picture. So when you live in that world, that's what you have to do. If you don't live in that world, you just ignore it. I go on Greg Gutfeld's show every once in a while. I'm not this mad Republican, but I've known Greg for a long time.
Yeah, Red Eye.
Right. And Red Eye, I've known Greg for 15 years, and all of a sudden no one wanted to go on a show anymore because it was Fox News. And I'm like, well, Greg's my friend, and he helped me out a lot with Red Eye. Red Eye was really popular.
And unbeknownst to a lot of people, Greg's not a Republican.
No,
he's a libertarian.
Yeah.
Right.
But he's taking a gig. So like sometimes you're just taking a gig for the gig's sake of the gig, and you don't really concern yourself with the politics.
Then you become the king of late night.
Right. I know he's got when I go on there, if I plug something, I sell a lot of tickets, and it's not all like these Trump people that come out or whatever. It's just people that want to hear comedy at night instead of the other late night guys. I also know Jimmy Kimmel really well. I've done his show a bunch of times.
So we were talking about Patton Oswalt. Sam, you got to be easy on the guy. I mean, the guy he lost his wife, and you can.
Well, we were talking about Kimmel too, and so this goes in this thread of thought of, when Jim started off and he got these, the crank anchors, which was then given to Gary. And then I guess that's how you got on the show, which was giving tapes, but it was Carolla, Kimmel, Chappelle, Silverman. And I just want to know, like, what do you think of even people like Jimmy Kimmel, who the Man Show, how does that make you feel?
Well, from Howard playing the telemarketer calls that I had, those prank calls, it just happened at like the perfect timing. I think it was like 2002, early 2002. Kimmel and Carolla got a deal to do a prank call show, and they were big Howard fans. I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know those guys. I knew them from the Man Show, and they would listen all the time. And they called up Gary, go, who's that guy that does those calls? We want him. We're doing this prank call show. We want him on our show. So that's how I got the gig.
Right. I know.
From that. Yeah. Which was awesome.
But then you work with these people, and you saw just like, the trajectory of the Stern Show and Kimmel. And people like Patton Oswalt, even though he wasn't on the Stern Show, but just his career in general, kind of, I guess I would say, selling out, as I would call it. What do you think of a person you knew, especially Kimmel, about that?
Well, look, I mean, like I said, once you go to Hollywood, it's a whole other thing. Do you want to play the game? Do you want to hang out with celebrities? Do you want to make a lot of money, or do you want to play it safe, or do you want to just, but that's the choice you got to make. I see so many comics that move out there and their acts are more, generic once they get out there. They were super edgy when they lived in New York, and then they went out there like, well, I'm in the system now. I want to make it. I'm tired of struggling. We never know in this business. I remember I was 36 years old. I was still paying my bills with change. I was going down to the change machine at the friggin' Pathmark supermarket. Coinstar. Yeah. I get like 90 cents out of a dollar or whatever. But so you just don't know. So I could see people going, I'm going to sell out. I just could never do it. It wasn't in me.
I'd like to hear that, but there's there's Heather McDonald. Do you know who she is? She's a stand-up comic.
Yeah, I know her, yeah.
She has this show called Juicy Scoops, and I guess Jimmy Kimmel did something like super inappropriate at the Emmys, where he basically just like laid down on the stage in front of a winner it wasn't funny, and it also ruined the moment for her because it was her first Emmy and ever being nominated for something. And so she just let out, I don't know what happened to her, but she just went bananas and was like, this is such bullshit. He's such a fraud. Anybody who knows him is such a fraud. She goes, and you know what? I'm never going to get on this show, so I don't even give a shit. I don't even care. He's a fraud. I can't believe he did this. He's an idiot. He's a loser. He's a liar. And she just had this break moment where I feel like comics like you, do you ever have that moment where you're like, this is ridiculous? Like, you're not this person you portray to be.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, did Kanye messed up Taylor Swift when she won an award? Howard did it with Metallica when he came out as Fart Man. So people have done it before. If it didn't work, it didn't work. So Jimmy was probably just trying to be funny at that point. But look, he's a white male in Hollywood. So, you got to watch your back. People will come after you. You make one mistake, you're gone. So, he probably thought it was going to be funny. It wasn't. Jimmy's got a good sense of humor. Look, but like I said, once you're in Hollywood and do you want to play the game? I remember Leno. I remember I was being backstage at the Leno show because I would go there when Jim Norton would do it because Jim was a correspondent. Yep. And Leno sat down, me and Jim. He's like, why don't you guys be cleaner?
Yep.
Like you can make so much money in the corporate world. He goes, there's so much money out there to do a corporate gig and then do the comedy club in town. Oh, God, we don't have it in. It's like, why? What's the big deal? You can't just write clean jokes. I go, I don't want to. I go, you have some, but I don't want. I'm not a filthy comic. But he's like, there's so much more money. Guys don't see the big picture. Like, I like where I'm at. He's like, okay, but Jay's like, this is what I'll do. And I'm sure, when you get out there, that's what you have to do. You got to take off the edge. It's like a relationship, The first 6 months, the girl lets you do anything or the guy lets you do anything. And then after 6 months, they completely control you. They break down everything that they said they liked about you. No, don't do that anymore. Don't do that anymore. And don't do that anymore. You're like, wait a minute. I thought you liked that stuff.
Well, there could be repercussions. Like they tried to do it to Joey Diaz, and he just said straight up set because he said basically he told a story on Rogan about telling some aspiring comic, the female comic back in the day, if you suck my dick, I got the key to show business. And he said, look, she was stupid enough to believe it, and at that time we were all dirtbags, and we're all, you're gonna he refused to apologize for it was the main point, and he never got Me Too'd because he's not like mainstream. He did have some movie roles and TV roles, but he's still doing his podcast, which is what he's most famous for now. And it's not derailed him. So there are ways to get around it, especially if the push behind it isn't that strong. So I'm going to play one story that you told on O&A about Rich Voss. It's called the bus story. So hold on for a sec.
Wait, what happened?
Wait, Voss has the creepiest story, my favorite story of all time. He's doing like a Tuesday night at Rascals down at Jersey Shore. Picks this girl up in his little motel, $60 or whatever, right? So he pulls and she goes, yeah, let's get a room. He's like, okay. So they get in the parking lot. And they fool around in the parking lot. So she must have blew him in the parking lot or whatever. So now she's like, okay, well, you're going to go get the room. He's like, yeah. So he's walking to the front desk. He's like, well, I just blew a load. I don't need to get a room now.
Yeah.
So he's trying to figure out how to get out of it. And so he comes back to the car. Meanwhile, there's no cars in the parking lot.
It's one of those motels where you pull the car right up to the doors.
Yeah.
In the parking
lot. There's nobody there because it's a Tuesday. Nobody's staying at that shitty motel. Yeah. It's in the winter in the Jersey Shore, so nobody's there. So then he comes back to the car. He's like, they're sold out. She's like, what are you talking about? There's no cars. He goes, no, there's a bunch of buses in the back for some tour, so there's no rooms.
Oh my God.
So this is obviously before he married Bonnie and had a kid. Maybe they have 2 kids for now, for all I know. But were you ever afraid that something like that would come back on you guys?
No, because that's just what you did. It was just like you were, it's like when you went to a club, if you're a guy and on the weekends you go to clubs and you meet women and you pick them up and you bring them back to your place and they got friends. That's basically what it was. But yeah, I mean, I do remember that show. I was laughing when I was saying it because I know where it's going. Yeah, I mean, I remember my first car that I bought. I remember I got on MTV like 3 years into my career, and then I got a college age, and I made a bunch of money really quick, and I went out and bought a brand new Toyota Tercel, and I got the windows tinted, the back window completely dark, and the back side windows, but I couldn't do the front windows. It was illegal
you get pulled over. Yeah.
Get pulled over. So I got the back one and the 2 back windows, and also the back window, just so I could fool around with girls in the back of my car, so I didn't have to get a room because I had no money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my girlfriend at the time, she lived with her parents. We just have sex in my car. I'd pull in a parking lot. Nobody could look in because it was pitch black. And that's why I did it. I didn't do it because I wanted the sun out.
Hence the uneven tan. Well, this is Bob on the same episode of O&A.
Holy fuck.
It happens. That's what makes our life so great. When we were on the road, we were called the Load Warriors.
Who called you the Load Warriors? Bob made that up.
Okay. Yeah.
It's so amazing.
You got to understand, it was like none of us went to college. I mean, I went to a 2-year community college, and I got it.
Well, please, you're better than half. You're more respectable than half the shit that's being pumped up now.
Right, because I went for communication. I got a communications degree, radio and TV, and then after 2 years, I realized I don't have to go to a 4-year college. I was already working on a radio station, so. But, that was like our college. That was like our dorm, like hooking up with girls, because we never did that that 4 years away in college like every guy does. And then when he gets out of college, he gets a job, he gets married. So that was our way of being living in a dorm for 4 years, being on the road, especially early on in a career.
When you got to like live shows, then when you were more successful in your career and doing Stern, what was it like performing at Carnegie Hall with Artie?
I remember Howard walked in the middle of my set.
Really?
Because I went on first. I think there was an MC, maybe did like 5 minutes. I guess he was running late. He came in with an entourage. He didn't do it on purpose, but I guess they were running late or whatever. So I'm like 4 minutes into my set, and I'm doing pretty good. And then all of a sudden I'm in the middle of like a setup of a joke, and I hear this roar coming. I'm like, why are they laughing at this part? I didn't even get to the punchline.
Oh, man.
And I can't see because the lights are super bright on me. I can only see like the first or second row and and then I see everyone just turning around like in the front row. And I put my hand up and I just see someone walking and the place just goes nuts. So I just basically had to sit there. And he was sitting in like the 5th row. So he came all the way from the back with like probably 10 people. I think Robin was with him and Beth and a bunch of people. And it took them all, I sat on the stool for like 2.5 minutes.
Wow.
Oh my God.
I couldn't say a word because the place was going nuts that he walked in. They were going crazy that he was there. And I forgot what I said. I forgot what I said when he sat down. I said something that killed, something like, wow, I didn't think you guys liked that joke that much. That's the best response I'd ever got, or something.
Did it make you nervous, first of all? And people just have this sort of feeling about Artie when it's connected to the Stern Show, the anti-hero, I suppose. And what did it feel like his crowd of people and being
doing a show with Artie?
For him? Yeah, the opener for that moment. Because I'm sure you knew how big it was for him, too.
No, it was amazing. Absolutely. I brought my mom there. She's like, I can't believe you're playing Carnegie Hall. I go, I know. It was crazy. So, no, it was unbelievable. But, but him walking in on that, like I've done so many shitty gigs. I used to go on in between strippers. And so I could deal with anything. So if something like that happens, like, okay, well, I'll just wait to address it. So it wasn't like, what am I going to do? I'm going to panic. I already knew dealing with assholes and drunk assholes in clubs for years. So I'm like, all right, we'll just wait till he sits down and then I'll continue my act.
Okay, well, I got this question regarding the walk-on because this is something that some Dice told on the show. So let me set up the video so I can edit it later. So Dice was on the show one time and he explained how he produced you and Florentine, you and Don one time, and maybe it happened multiple times. Before we go into the clip, I want to know, how did you get in good with Dice? Because he's notoriously standoffish with people that aren't really close to him, like his family. I read his book. I've been a lifelong Dice fan. I memorized most of his albums, and how did you guys manage to get in good with him? Because it seems like it doesn't happen unless you're, really, really. So you have an in. I don't know how you got the in.
It was crazy because me and Jim Norton, that's how we bonded when we first started doing comedy together. We liked Black Sabbath and Dice. Mm-hmm. And we listened to the Day to Laughter Died albums where he bombs. Those are some of the greatest comedy albums of all time. We knew every line.
Unbelievable.
So we'd do these long road gigs and just listen to it and just, and be dying as he's bombing and people are leaving. It was the greatest comedy album of all time. So cut to like 1999. It's my first day ever in LA. Me and Jim Norton got picked to do Louis Anderson Comedy Showcase on NBC. He was hosting for young comedians. And I remember Rich Voss was at the Comedy Store and me and Jim were somewhere else and he called us. He got in touch with us somehow and he goes, hey, Dice is at the Comedy Store. And me and Jim, like, holy shit. We ran up there and Boss knew Dice. So he was talking to him. And I went over to him. I go, hey, Dice, I go, can I get a picture? And he just looks at me, goes, no. I go, what do you mean? He goes, no, nobody tells you what to do. I go, I can't get a picture. He goes, no, nobody tells me what to do. I don't even know who you are. Get out of here. And I'm standing there, I'm like, oh, shit. And he's still talking to Voss. And I'm like, I got this one shot. Dice is my idol. Yeah. That's the reason I got up on stage. I'll go, I'm going to ask him one more time. And I go, Dice, come on, man. We're comics from New York. We're just out here filming this TV show. Can we just get a quick picture? That's it. And he's like an inch away from me. And I'm like, he's going to punch me in the face. Like, yeah, you're a comic from New York? I go, yeah. He goes, yeah, I'll take a picture. Come on. And then all of a sudden we started talking and we told him how much we liked the album, The Day to Laughter Died. He's like, I don't remember what I said on there. Tell me some of the jokes. And me and Jim started telling him some of the jokes. He's like, you guys got to go on stage tonight. Do it for me and my friends. So he told the Comedy Store manager, hey, put these two guys on stage as Jammin Jim. And we went up there and did Dice's material, and the crowd had no idea what we were doing.
Oh, my God.
We completely bombed, but him and his buddies were in the back dying, and we were up there for like 15 minutes. We took turns with a microphone. Jim would do one. I'd be like, Bette Midler shits yodels. Nobody believes me. And they're like, what? So then afterwards, I recorded it. He goes, let's go in my Cadillac and listen to it on cassette. It was on cassette. So we're sitting in Dice's Cadillac in the Comedy Store parking lot, and we're playing it. And he's like, we're laughing. He's laughing. And then he goes, where are you guys staying? I go, yeah, we're staying across the street at this hotel. He goes, maybe I'll pick you up tomorrow. We'll go shopping. I go, yeah. He goes, yeah, maybe we will. I'm like, there's no way he's going to pick. We tell the other comics we're staying with. There was like 6 of us staying in a room. They're like, yeah, he ain't coming. I go, yeah, I know. But it was still great hanging with them. The next morning at the front desk, like, there's a guy down here for Jammin Jim. Come on down. I'm like, holy shit.
Oh, my God. He fucking came?
He came. He's out front. And we tried to bring this other comic, Lenny Marcus, with us. I go, we'll try. I go, hey, Dice, we bring this guy as a comic? He goes, no, get out of here. No, you don't. You're not a comic. You're not. Look at you. You can't be funny. No, just Jammin Jim. And then he took us out the whole day. We went shopping, took us for pizza, and we became friends with him. And then Jim started open for him. Then I started open for him. And that's how we began our friendship, just from that one night. It was so weird.
And
that's so amazing.
And Jim, was he filming even then?
Filming what?
Just anything. He seemed to have, he says he's got this huge archive of like videos, like even Super 8 stuff that he had way back when. He was always filming whatever he was doing with like Club Soda Kenny and I don't know, with Happy Face. And even like for all the, like he just always had a thing for videoing things.
Not right then, but about a year or two later, we were in a ton of videos because we'd open for him in Vegas. He'd fly us out to Vegas and we'd open. And he's like, the whole day we're just filming stuff. We're in the desert. Okay, you do this, and then I do this. You know what the best was? I guess one of his kids was it was his bar mitzvah, and he was going through a divorce with his ex-wife.
Yep.
And he goes, hey, he told his ex-wife, listen, I want to play this video. before at the bar mitzvah. It's just real in Beverly Hills. Me and Jim flew out for it and stuff. And he goes, watch what I'm going to do. The video was like an hour and 15 minutes of nonsense. The people were miserable. It was like Club Soda Kenny just saying stupid. It had nothing to do with their kids.
It's like a bad drunk toast of the best man.
It was so uncomfortable. And then me and Jim are just we're slapping each other in the face in the back of the Comedy Store. Why? At his son's bar mitzvah, just to torture his ex-wife. It was the greatest.
That humor of just like repulsion. It reminds me of like Uncle Paul, because I remember Norton used to do Uncle Paul on O&A, and he notoriously did it knowing Opie fucking hated it. He hated it, but he just would drag this character out to no end. And for listeners like you or me, it was the best, because he just didn't give a flying fuck. Like, I'm going to do Uncle Paul as long as I want to.
Yep.
Well, here's the clip, guys, and we know you're going to enjoy it. I just hope it stays on YouTube when we do release it.
No, like with the comics, like there's 2 or 3 comics on the show.
It's a new thing.
So instead of just a comic finishing up, they never know when the next guy's coming on.
I see. Dice, you're
like
always an
rappers do
innovator.
that?
You're always an innovator.
Well, I got it from the whole rap world, because like a lot of rappers go out together, and right in the middle of one song, here comes another rapper saying, basically the same shit. And then the other guy's like, all right, I'm done for a little, all right?
All right, I'll see you later. And another guy comes out.
But the beauty of being a comic is the guy could be in the middle of the bit, and here comes like Jim Florentine, like just walking out, because you never know when the new guy's going to come out.
But you would never allow a guy to come out during your set, so
I'm Dice. It's my show.
Come on.
Just like this is the Howard Stern show.
You're messing with guys a little bit.
No. It's all about for comedy's sake.
All right.
And then like Jameson and Florentine wound up doing their acts together in one place.
Their acts.
Stage at Governors.
One of them walked off. I go, where you going? You guys are killing. Go back out.
Yeah.
I said to Jameson, go back out. And they stayed on for 15 minutes. And the crowd's dying from it.
So you're like a producer.
Fillmore.
Yeah, go ahead. Just the concept. 2 guys doing the same act.
So he would just say, he said, just walk out whenever you feel it. Just walk out. So I remember one show we were doing like a weekend at a club. It was Don Jameson went first, and I went second, and Dice. So Don was like a minute into his set, and Dice goes, go out now. I go, now? And I walked out. He goes, I guess I'm done. And then I went out. He did 1 minute. And the next night, he let him do like 15 or whatever like that. He goes, go out now. I go, it's only go out. I'm like, okay. And then Dice walked out like 9 minutes into my set. All of a sudden, I hear this roar behind me. No introduction, nothing. I'm in the middle of a joke. Like, okay. And I hand him the mic. The crowd's like, what the hell is going on?
So you have this like unique, start, I guess, to your career compared to, people who have kind of been groomed to do this. Or it's not normal the way this went. No offense.
No, it's not at all.
Not at all. So I was reading this intro bag, Sarah Dames article, and you said Howard took Misfit Comics and put us on air, which was great. It was a great exposure. Howard was a great launching pad. And so when I read that, I thought to myself, even hearing this story, do you think now, I'm not saying back then, but if you had to talk to a new comic now, just like how Dice did with you, would you think that Howard's show is a great launching pad?
No, because the show has changed, and he has A-list, people in which you would never get. You get them once in a while. So the show's changed. Like a guy like Joe Rogan, that's the place to go.
Right. Yeah. What do you think like in this change? Like what celebrity that he, kissed ass with, that he mocked relentlessly during the heyday of like when we loved it as listeners, which one would most surprised you?
What, that he
did a turnaround on and decided, okay, this person's great. Meanwhile, I tore them a new asshole for about 20 years.
Yeah, well, if you realize the history of the show,
if you had to pick one,
the most surprising.
Probably Rosie, but then again, remember back in the day, I remember listening, like he would just get mad at Chevy Chase, or I remember David Lee Roth call him David Weave Roth.
Yep.
And then he was mad at Kinnison for a while, and then he was mad at Bon Jovi for a while, and Dice. And then as soon as they came back on the show, he was fine. It was almost like, you come on my show, and then I'll be fine with you. I'm going to trash you until I do. And then Dave came back on. He was say David Weave Roth. You know,
right.
He always said Dave
and
was hair.
And Chevy invited him to his wedding, and he made toast.
So, but I think he got to the
remember
point.
That toast?
Yeah, that was him going, if you come on my show, I'm not going to trash you. Until you come on, I'm going to trash you. So I think that's what it was. He just wanted everybody on a show, and he's just go torture these people. And then look, he had DeBella on after all that craziness that went on with him.
Okay, even though the celebrity thing, like the rescinding, I guess that's what we call it, going back on. What do you think about him when he signed on to AGT?
Oh, God.
Look, he always wanted to host a game show. That was like his thing. All of his old bits were game shows, right? He always did the Hollywood Squares, this and that. So he always said he wanted to host that, whatever. I forget what that stupid show used to be that Meredith Vieira used to host. He was always bitching he couldn't host that. No, that game show that she did, whatever it was. Anyway, he always wanted to be on some kind of like, talent or game show type thing. But, look, when you're on NBC, it's going to be, you got to be completely mainstream. So you got to know going in.
Let me change the question a little bit, just to make it a little more, safe, I guess. What would you say was the reaction in the stand-up world, like amongst guys you knew, that when he did this gig, like, were they thinking, "Oh my fucking Christ, you can't be serious"? Or was it, yeah, whatever, he wants to sell out, fuck it, who cares?
Honestly.
Most of the stand-up comics were more like O&A guys.
Yeah.
O&A were the guys that they had most of the comics on. There wasn't that many besides like me, Artie, Levy,
DePaulo,
but DePaulo would go on both shows. Colin kind of would go on both shows. So it was more the O&A guys that were like the comics. So I don't even remember like anyone saying anything like when he got that gig, because it was more of Opie and Anthony. They were more of like, that was more of the comic show than Howard at that point.
Which I agree with as a listener. Right.
And all comics know, it's like, okay, if you're going to do a sitcom and you're a little edgy and you get your own sitcom in NBC, they're going to take the edge away.
Right.
It's just the way it's going to be. You could be a little edgy, but there's no way you're going to have the same act.
Oh, I'm not even saying the edge of NBC and the censorship. I'm saying just the fact that he did it, from how you think of Howard as that guy that you couldn't have, machinery running around when he was on back in the day, compared to what it was like knowing, oh my God, this is a guy that actually signed on and wanted to do this show, this loser show. I mean, it's so embarrassing in my eyes.
Well, yeah, I guess the question is, gun to your head, Stern Show 2022 or Stern Show 2000?
What I like better? I mean,
yeah.
No, I mean, Stern Show 2000 was, I got on in July 18th, 2001. I still remember that date.
Mm-hmm.
That's the day I got on. That's the day that changed my career.
Was that incidentally, Jim, were you part of the crew that tried out for Get Jackie's Job? Like, did you sit in as that, or was it just it was a guest spot, just happened to be you were invited to the show?
No, I was probably Artie got the gig like late October, I remember, 2001.
Right.
I remember him telling me, he goes, "Hey, man, they're going to have me do full time." I'm like, "Really?" Like, they never told us, "Hey, we're trying out." All you guys were trying out to find out who the guy is. They would just have us come in. They go, "Yeah, we're just going to have different guys come in. We're going to rotate a bunch of different guys." Like, okay. Yeah. So we never knew they were looking for one person for that job. And then when Artie told me that, I went in July 18th. So by the end of October of that, right after 9/11, pretty much a month and a half after, Artie said, "Yeah, hey man, they offered me the full-time gig." I go, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." I go, "Cool, man." I was happy for him. I wasn't jealous at all. Artie was the right choice for that. I wouldn't have been the right choice for that.
Yeah.
That's good. There's, the amazing thing too is Artie, when he came on the show, he came on with Norm, which was, he was lost, in the last few years, and Gilbert. They're like two comic legends, obviously, and had big impacts on the show, and when now they're gone and you think about it in retrospect of the Stern Show, how did you feel when they passed away?
Yeah, well, I didn't really know Norm. I think I met him only one time. I mean, he was just such a legend. All he did was mess with people, and I love that. Yeah. That's like my style of comedy, just fucking with people. Gilbert, I knew a lot. I knew him way more. I opened for him a bunch of time. I did Skankfest with him like 4 months before, and he went up there and killed. He was definitely slow. It took him a while to get to the stage. He was there with his wife and everything, and we hung and talked all weekend and stuff. It was great to catch up with him. So that one affected me way more than Norm because I didn't really know him that much. But just those two legends, I didn't know Gilbert was that sick. You could tell that he was weak and he was moving slow, but I didn't know he had all that stuff going on.
Yeah, sad. Real quick, Jim, I just got these rapid fire questions, and I got a few more fan questions as well, and a couple of my own too. But hopefully you can answer these real quick. I want you to pick one: Black Sabbath, Black Flag, or Black Crowes.
Oh, not even close. Black Sabbath.
Okay.
But I just saw Black Crowes for the first time over the summer, and they were amazing. But Black Sabbath, that's my favorite band of all time.
Okay, you got each one of these is in a fire, and you got to save one: the Reverend Horton Heat, Reverend Jesse Jackson, or Reverend Bob Levy.
I'd save Levy.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
You can be a professional wrestler from any era. You can play with time for one day. You can be that wrestler. Who would you pick?
Superstar Billy Graham. He was usually my favorite wrestler as a kid.
Okay, fair enough. You're on a deserted island, not a desert island like a lot of these fucking cocksuckers say. Desert island. You can only pick two albums to take with you. One studio, one live. Which two do you take?
Motorhead, Ace of Spades studio, and Judas Priest Unleashing the East live.
Okay, fair enough. Favorite concert ever that you attended?
Oh man, that's tough. Shit. I just saw Rage Against the Machine twice at the Garden. I took my kid, and he said it was the greatest show he's ever seen. He knew all the songs, but then he saw AC/DC at MetLife Stadium, and he knew all the songs, and it was just like I saw AC/DC as a kid. So I think those two concerts for me were.
Okay, and fair enough. And then let's pick a concert that you could have seen that it killed you to miss out on, that you heard was awesome.
I don't know. I mean, nothing really. I mean, I've never seen System of a Down. I like those guys a lot. So maybe that's the one. They rarely tour, but there's nothing real. I've pretty much seen every band a million times.
Fair enough. Okay, now last two for this rapid fire. Absolute worst bombing you've ever seen by a comedian. You don't have to. Maybe it's not nice to name them, but everybody's bombed. I mean, even the biggest names bomb sometimes. What was the worst bombing you've ever seen personally?
Well, it could have been me. I mean, I bombed, opening for Slayer, Megadeth, and Anthrax in front of 17,000 people. They're throwing beers at me on stage. So I booing 17,000 booing. Then after the show, I was by the merchandise table signing stuff, and a guy punched me in the head.
Oh, Jesus.
Because he said my jokes were up there. I wasted so much time that I took songs away from Slayer.
Fuck.
So, I've had some legendary bombs.
Okay, and then the opposite, the person you've seen kill the hardest.
Joey Diaz.
Where was this? Just out of curiosity.
I remember seeing him at the Comedy Store like 8 years ago. I go, this is the funniest working comic. That guy, he don't give a fuck. He's my neighbor now. He lives like 6 houses away. He's at my house all the time. Yeah, he's awesome. But I remember him and my manager were in LA, and I saw him like, holy, this is the funniest working comic out there. He don't give a shit. And especially in LA, and he's just saying all that shit. It was great.
Since you're an ex-Stern fan, when was the first inkling that you thought the show started to change?
I don't, after Artie left, I didn't really listen that much anymore because I had Sirius in the one car I had. And then when I got rid of it, I don't know. I couldn't figure it out. A new car. I was like, I'm not going to pay for it again. I already had it. So I just never I haven't had Sirius probably in like 10 years. And I have a show that I do on Ozzy's Boneyard on Sirius, and I still don't have it. So I pretty much stopped listening after Artie left, maybe 2 years after.
You were notably like on O&A a lot too, as you said, like previously about, stand-up comics really having their voice, and it was more of a conversation and kind of the genesis of something like a Rogan podcast. What I guess, if any, issues that you felt between the shows?
Well, I just know, like, when me and Jim Norton were living together at the time, in 2001, 2002, Jim got the gig maybe 2002 as a sidekick for Opie and Anthony. And we were roommates and they were at a war with each other. The Stern, and I was going on the Stern show. I was a regular on there, going on every like 3-4 months, doing all the comedy shows, calling in. So it was weird for us. We're like, hey, man, that's not our fight, but it was just weird that we were both on these competing shows that hated each other.
Just a real quick question. I don't mean to interrupt, Sam. Was there any blowback from like the way the late night shows sometimes used to do it, where if you go on that person's show, you're not welcome here, that kind of thing? Did that ever become an issue for you, or did you ever hear that happening to other comics?
What between Opie and Anthony and Stern?
Yeah, especially when they got to Sirius. I heard that Tim Sabian with Levy, especially, he was pissed off at Levy because Levy wanted to have Norton on Miserable Men, and he said no, like, you can't have them because that's an Opie and Anthony connection, and we're competing with them, even though it was still Sirius.
I don't remember that. It was just kind of an unwritten rule. Like if you were on one show, just stick with that show. Like, right. And that was, I never even asked, hey, can I go on Opie and Anthony? I just knew I got a good thing going on with the Stern show, so I'm not going to ruin it. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going, because I know it could be a potential be a problem. They never said, hey, just make sure you never go on that show.
Okay.
But I just knew not to. I'm like, I'm not going to ruin a good thing here.
I got a real quick question from Dave H, who says, when was the last time you took an upper decker?
It's been a while. I mean, probably. Well, we did it for that Meet the Creep series, that hidden camera series. That might have been I did it on the Louis show, even though it was fake.
Okay.
I did it on the last episode of Louis on FX. I died taking an upper decker. I don't know if you ever saw it. I fell off the toilet, top of the toilet tank, and hit my head.
I did. I just saw Louis on Rogan, and he was promoting a movie he made with Apollo and
Joe List.
Yes, and it is fantastic.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. It's called 4th of July. I know all the comics in it and stuff, but I think that was probably Louis was fascinated that I took an upper decker on camera, so he wound up putting that in a script for me to do on FX. So I'm gonna take an upper decker and I slip off the toilet and I hit my head on the sink and I die.
Super professional. I can't tell you the level of professionalism, Jim. I got two real quick questions. Oh, go ahead, Sam.
No,
yeah.
You're not okay. So when you knew Artie was getting like into drugs and stuff, Chris Rock at the time said that you need to fire Artie during when he was like doing really bad. Like he just flat out said, you need to fire him. Mm-hmm. How did you feel about the treatment of Artie kind of, with the show when it was getting bad? And somebody like Chris Rock, who comes from obviously a different world.
And that also ties into another question someone has asked about. Did you and Artie ever discuss not necessarily, well, his treatment on the show, or how he felt being on the show, kind of being, his addiction was pretty much being made into, content for the show. And how did he feel shitty about it?
Yeah. And it also just felt like, too, when we listened to Chris Rock say that at the time as fans, and especially in hindsight, it's pretty like, I guess, eye-opening that, oh my God, why weren't people more thinking in that direction? So what did you think?
I don't know. Look, everything was a bit on that show. If you had any kind of affliction or anything, that was always the show. Artie's downfall, and Artie knew, is he couldn't get off the road because the offers were unbelievable, the amount of money he was getting. So he was out every weekend because as a comic, you always think it's going to end and you're going to run out of money and your career is going to be over. So if you have an opportunity, we always jump on it because we remember when we were broke. So Artie always thought that way. So instead of staying home, he was making a good living.
You're like the depression. You're like depression grandparents.
We are. We're always worried. I told you, like, I was 36 years old and paying in change. I didn't know. I'm like, I'm going to file for bankruptcy soon. I had no, I wasn't married. I had no kids. I didn't know if I was going to make it. And you always think, oh man, I could go back to that. So that was Artie's downfall, by working every weekend, not getting home till Sunday afternoon, flying in from Vegas. And then he has to be up at 4 a.m. to go to work. And it just wore on him. If he would have just stayed home and just took weekends off, but he was addicted to the money, and I don't blame him. The crowds, they loved him. He'd sell out every show. So that was the downfall. But look, that was the show. If you had some kind of problem, they wanted you on the show to talk about it and exploit it.
And speaking of exploitation, so Cumia, notoriously got fired from O&A because of this. I don't know, like he was taking a picture of somebody in Times Square, and it was this whole thing. But previously, before that, it was like a slow decline of the relationship between Anthony, Opie, Jim, and the entire thing. Mm-hmm. How did you feel when that was happening? Like, what did you think about it?
I didn't know what was happening there. I go in there. I didn't feel any tension. Jim never told me he hated Opie or Anthony or anything like that. I was kind of new to the show because I started going on later. Yep. So I had no idea. You don't know that stuff's going on.
And you never went to his parties, like at the.
No, I never did. No, I never. Wow. I never went to those, so I didn't really know. I was friends with Jim, and Jim wasn't going to say I hate Opie or anything like that. So I didn't know until Anthony got fired, and Opie, had me sit in a lot, and they were like, Opie actually went to management and said, "Listen, since you're saving money on Anthony's salary, you got to pay these guys to come in as a third guy because it was just Jim and Opie, and they always wanted a third. So it was me, Sherrod Small, Rich Voss. There was like Bobby Kelly, and Opie got us some really good money every time we sat in, and that helped pay for my divorce."
Wow.
Oh my God, that's interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And Opie went to bat for us and said, "Listen, you got to pay. You're saving money on Anthony's salary. We need another voice in here. Pay these guys." Yeah. So, he did me. I got nothing bad to say about Opie. I know people go after him and stuff. He never did anything to me.
Yeah. And the other thing is a lot of people are going after Stuttering John now. And I know he invites a lot of it himself by doing the same thing and going after them. But we made a decision not to go after him because he's just clearly got an alcohol problem. And I just known too many people with that same problem. And I don't have it in me to go after a drunk. How do you feel about that whole cottage industry that's happening now where they're just going after, just savaging this guy?
Yeah. I was on one of the shows because I was in, Rochester. Yeah. And then I just said, "Listen, man, I'm not getting involved." John's another guy. If someone never did anything to me before in the past, I got nothing bad to say about him. John took me on tour. He got me exposure. Mm-hmm. That's when I first started going on a Stern show. And I was like, if I can open for him and these crowds could see me, these big crowds, I'll come back at this club and headline on my own. And that's exactly what happened. So,
when he was helping you and doing that stuff, and back in the day, especially when you were a fan, who do you think was the biggest asset on the Stern show?
Well, me and John started doing them first. I remember the shows. And then Artie said, "Hey, I want to start doing stand-ups." And then Artie joined the tour. And then as soon as Artie joined, the place, the fans went nuts.
Through the roof.
I mean the show as a whole, like the radio show. Who do you think, if you think about the times you listened and when you were most, I guess, enthralled with the show, who did you think was the best asset on the show besides Howard?
Jackie the Joke Man.
Mm-hmm.
Jackie's my favorite guy that was ever on the show. Mm-hmm. Billy West, but Billy West was only on for a few years. Billy was unbelievable, but I love the Jackie years. The Jackie years, those I still listen to those on YouTube. I can't get enough of them. Just them trashing Jackie every day. I loved it. And look, if it wasn't for Jackie leaving that show, who knows where I'd be right now in my career? I always look back at that because they never had unknown comics come in.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. I thanked him. I remember I saw Jackie like 3 years ago. I thanked him. He was, "You son of a bitch, give me some money then." Like that. He was laughing. Yeah. But it was true. If Jackie would have never left that show, I would have never got on there. They weren't taking guys they never heard of.
Yeah, it changed a lot of it changed a lot of trajectories. A couple more quick questions from the fans. What are your thoughts on how the Dolphins management have handled Tua Tagovailoa's head hits?
I just talked to you about this. Yes.
It's not a problem at all. The media just, Tua's a good guy. He's religious and, he's already married. He's close to his parents. He's like a Tebow. So you have to go after him. Russell Wilson the same way. If he's a good guy and he's not a thug.
But he was hit.
No, but he wasn't hit. No, listen. In the Bills game,
right.
he hurt his back. He hurt his back like 3 plays before that. Someone pushed him from behind, getting him over the goal line.
Right.
And then it wasn't a concussion. He had no concussion when he went out in the Bills game. It was more of his back. He took a painkiller for his back. He came back and he destroyed the Bills in the second half.
I gotta say, so Florentine and I, I'm the biggest Bills fan and Florentine's the biggest Dolphins fan. And we've won the last, I think it's 7, right?
7 and 8 they won.
Yeah. And so they won. And now that's our 1 loss so far. That's our 1 mark on our record.
Right.
But Bills fans feel so guilty when like another player gets hurt or anything happens. We automatically donate to whatever charity the person who's injured gets hurt on the field.
Well, that second hit, it's clearly neurological fuck up, like something in there. So maybe it was just that particular hit that did him in. And I felt, you couldn't look at that and not cringe super.
But it had nothing to do with the Sunday game. The problem is the NFL, a bunch of whores, and they have to play on Thursday night 5 days later, and their bodies aren't recovered. They're all about the money. So all the players complain about that. Like you're basically in a car accident every Sunday and you need to get to the next Sunday to recover. And they start playing these games on Thursday. But meanwhile, Tua took the team plane back that night. He didn't stay in the hospital. My friend works for the Dolphins. He goes, he's up there playing cards. He's hanging out with the coach. He's fine, but he'll probably play this week.
Wow.
We'll see. What do you think about NFL wise? Who's your Super Bowl pick besides the Dolphins?
They're not. The Dolphins aren't going. It's going to be the Bills. I'd say the Bills, and I don't know who would in the NFC. Maybe I don't even know because the Cowboys always choke. The Packers don't look that good. So maybe the Rams, Bills and Rams. I said the Bills win it.
Do or dies for the Bills this year, Sam.
I just don't like how the NFL panders. They're still.
We can't take the hype. That's another thing. Like we're in a blue collar town of like losers. Like we don't like it.
You got to learn how to win. You got to learn how to win when it matters. No,
we want it. We care about it, but it's hard. It's hard to take like the heat. It's like, okay, back off. We love our Bills. Like, leave us alone.
Okay, another question. That was from Mac, and this one's from Gordon C. First of all, I got to preface it with, do you know of a place in Jersey called Vintage Vinyl that just closed?
Yes.
Okay, so he asked, did you manage to buy any last items from there, and if so, what were they?
It was a great record store that was there for 30 years, and I just closed like maybe like a year and a half ago. The guy retired. It was a great place. I would just go there and support. I'd buy a CD if a band came out. I'd just go buy it, even though I could stream it, but just for support and stuff like that. It sucked when I don't remember going. I went in there at the end. It was just depressing because the place was getting sold and everything.
What was that place we went to? That one in Rochester.
Yeah, that's called the Guitar Shop. The guitar.
And they had like a million. And I bought my dad like the Cream records.
Yeah, House of Guitars, I think it's called.
Yeah, and I bought him like a sick like Cream something. It was like amazing, that store.
Yeah, there's 2 in Rochester. There's 2 music shops still there. But yeah, that place in Jersey was near my house. I'd go there all the time.
Okay, a couple more little quick questions. Sorry, Sam, and we also have a couple clips to play as well. First of all, from Jimmy M, how is Crackfinger doing?
Crackfinger's doing great. He's my friend Tony. I've been friends with him since 2nd grade. He comes over to my house every Sunday, to watch football. He's still out of control. He's nuts. When Joey Diaz moved to my neighborhood, I told Joey, there's another guy I'm friends with too. It's just as crazy. There's 2 guys.
Yeah.
And I told Joey, I said, Joe, if you want to come over for football, I got 2 guys that are just assholes. I go, you're going to learn to like them, but they're dicks. He goes, no, I'll come over. I go, I'm just warning you. I don't want to make you uncomfortable. He goes, I'll be fine. But the second week, one of my friends chased him around my basement naked. And Joey Diaz called Joe Rogan the next day because Joe Rogan wanted Joey Diaz to move to Austin with him.
Yeah.
And Joey's like, no, I want to move back to Jersey because Joey grew up in Jersey.
Yeah.
And so he called up Joe Rogan. He goes, Joe, some 55-year-old man chased me around Jimmy Florentine's basement naked yesterday. This is where I need to be. I'm around my people.
Oh my God.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, go ahead.
I got a question. I know you watched our summit video of like when we took apart when Howard got that leaked video, you know,
Yeah.
of like him standing up on a stage and just like saying, make fake Twitter accounts. And I know you watched the whole thing. What do you think of that?
Well, I saw that before. That was around for a while. I don't know.
Right.
I remember seeing that.
And then we
online.
took it apart. But
Yeah.
like, what did you think of it?
Yeah, you know, it's weird because I don't live in the corporate world, but I remember like people were going, well, that's like a speech someone would say if they work for a corporation. Like that's normal.
Yeah.
Like they didn't think it was that crazy. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know anything about part of that world. Like, no, it's really not that bad what he was saying. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, you know, maybe the show was losing steam at that point and he figured if we get, I don't know, you know, maybe get more celebrity interviews, which, you know, they get press all the time. You know, you see him all the time. They pull something out of there where some crazy story. If there's a lot of press, so I don't know, man. It was just, yeah, it was weird. But then again, like that, I don't live in that corporate world.
Right.
Okay, well, this is a clip from when you did the Nick and Artie show, which we loved, and they have a little anecdote about what you carry with you when you travel.
Right, we do the gig, and right next door is a dance club. A little.
I love Nick's.
Oh, that's the Funny Bone in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, there's a dance club right next
called
door.
the Green Room.
Yeah,
the
Green Room, exactly. So we wander over there after the gig, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of drunk in the corner, just, you know, not having a good time like I always do.
Right.
And Jimmy comes in with, I don't know if it was John or not, but all of a sudden I see him mixing around, walking around. All of a sudden I just smell this rotten, horrendous. And I see girls going, ugh, what is going on? People start scattering like you would, like a terrorist attack. Yeah. And all of a sudden I see smoke on the dance floor. He drops a stink bomb.
There was a bachelorette party at our show, and they ruined the whole show. So then they were in there doing karaoke, having a good time.
Yeah, that was a karaoke bar.
Yes.
The Funny Bone in Pittsburgh had a karaoke bar, and while you're waiting to go on stage, you heard people singing like, Johnny used to work on the docks. You did last night. And then I'm like, I gotta go on. I gotta do an hour. Can you shut this kid up?
And that's his.
Yeah, because they ruined the show. So then they were in there having a good time. So I'm like, I'm going to ruin that good time.
You dropped an actual stink bomb?
Yeah, I used to carry him all the time with me.
Well, who doesn't carry a stink bomb, a grown man, to a dance club?
I'm gonna ruin that good time.
So,
those glass little tubes, they smell like rotten eggs. You put them on the dance floor, you can either step on them or you just put them out there, and somebody will step on them, and they crack easily, and it just smells like rotten eggs. People start running to the exit. It's great.
Man, they used to sell them when I was in grade 8 or so. We went to Quebec City and we bought some at some junks, like some joke store, and it smelled like a dead rat died up someone's arse. You know what I mean? Like it was just the worst foul smelling shit.
We used to bring them to the dance clubs all the time because we were like, we just put one on the dance floor and just watch as someone stepped on as they're dancing, or we throw it on the dance floor and it crack and then clear the dance floor and just be sitting there laughing.
Artie told a story on the same show about how you were at the airport and you just saw like a family with some teenagers and they're all having a good time. So you said, watch this. And then you walked over and all of a sudden they were going, oh, whatever. And you just unloaded the most horrendous fart near them because you said, I didn't want them to have a good time because we were miserable in between gigs.
We were miserable. Yeah, we're coming off, I don't know, we're going to Vermont or something like that. And they looked all happy. So I said, watch this. And it was like really loud. There was family just sitting there laughing, smiling. So I just had to ruin their good time.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
That's fantastic.
There's a couple more questions here. One of them was, of course, this is from Greg P. Were there any semi or semi-serious repercussions from any terrorizing telemarketers calls?
No, not at all.
None.
No, I mean, I just released volume 7.
Oh God!
So I'm still doing them.
I'm gonna probably try to put a portion of one of the calls in between the thing, like the pizza pie.
Oh, the pizza pie one, yeah,
something like that, or my absolute favorite is I got to call my brother on New Year's, so Don interrupts every 2 minutes. Yeah. One question that's part of that. Did you feel that Richard and Sal, when they started doing their interrupting bits on the show, that it was like a tribute to you guys, or did you feel that was kind of a copy?
No, I mean, because you can't claim, the Jerky Boys did it before everybody.
Okay.
So, they had different characters, and what our thing was, similar. So a prank call is a prank call. So I can't really go, hey, they copied or anything like that. So, and they're friends of mine. So I was happy they were doing it. They had jobs and shit like that. So
sure, cool.
So you're friends with them. Do you and you still keep in touch with them?
I haven't seen him. Yeah, me and Sal will text every once in a while. And Richard, no, I haven't seen him in a long time. Richard's got like 2 kids now, I heard. Yeah, but I haven't seen him. But I'm still friends with those guys. We'll text. Richard listens to my heavy metal show on Ozzy's Boneyard. He's always texts me about it. So
yeah, because he was a drummer. Do you like now that you have a kid? Like our kids are around the same age. How does it feel like now that you have a kid at the age that he is, and your career? What is like the best part in opportunities or events you can take him to that just kind of blow your mind to watch him experience that?
Well, yeah, he'll come to a lot of my stand-up gigs. He loves watching comedy. He loves watching stand-up. He's been on stage a bunch of times. He hasn't done it in a while. Now he's like playing basketball. He's into friends. He's like FaceTime with chicks now. So I'm like, good for him. Yeah. I want him to have a life. So, but no, and he'll go to certain concerts with me and stuff. We go to sporting events and, so he likes the same teams I like. It's great. It's like having a little buddy. We get a lot, it's awesome.
Do you feel like when you're able to take them to these events, do you feel some sort of, I guess, pride or just like, I feel great that I get to be able to, not a lot of people get to live that life.
Yeah, it's true. Because I remember we saw Rob Zombie over the summer and we went backstage and with John 5, the guitar player, it was his birthday. So we're basically at his birthday party. They brought out a cake and we're doing this. And Luke, my son's like, I can't believe I'm at John 5's birthday party. I'm like, yeah, it's pretty cool, right? Yeah, we didn't know it was going to happen. But he's more fascinated that I worked with Eminem back in the day because he's a big Eminem fan. He still can't believe it.
Well, this is another clip from the Nick and Artie show talking about that metal show, which I loved. The fact that you had Herman Rarebell, the fucking drummer from the Scorpions, with Andrew Dice Clayson, who a lot of people don't know. Dice was a drummer back in the day. He used to do like jazz bands or whatever. And he in vinyl he played a character who starts playing drums really shitty, drunk, coked up. But anyway, this is them talking about the appeal of the metal show.
Tool fan. I was just wondering if he was into that band as well.
Yeah, Tool is definitely like the modern version of like Rush. You think
you'd put them in that league?
Not yet, no, because they've only put like 3 records out, so they got to do 5 more. Yeah. And they only put one record out every like 6 or 7 years, but they're good. I'm not a huge fan. It's a little too smart for me.
Yeah,
I like dumbed down.
It's a little pretentious. It's a little pretentious.
Why do you compare it to Rush? What makes them like Rush?
Because it's kind of like sophisticated, kind of like bunch of different parts. Like you got to be like, a real music fan. Like I want to listen to this on the headphones. I'm like, let me just put the CD in my car and just crank. It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll.
Thanks for the call, Brett.
Yeah, Jimmy's show, that metal show that he hosts with Don Jameson and a guy named Eddie Trunk. It's a great show because you'll see guys interviewed there that you'll never see anywhere else on television.
The bass player for Rat.
Well, I saw them interview the lead singer of Queensryche one night.
Is that the old guy?
It's fantastic.
No, Jeff Tate. No, he's not. He's
thinking of another.
But it's funny because everyone always says, "Are any of those guys dicks? Are they got an attitude?" I go, "No, because they have nowhere else to go on TV to promote this. They're not going to be on Piers Morgan. They're not doing Letterman. Rat's got an album out. They're not going on Letterman. Rat."
So people don't. If anybody gets a chance, you got to check out that metal show. I love when you guys had Dee Snider, you had Peter Criss on, and of course I know Eddie's a massive Kiss fan. So that was always a great thing when you could have Ace or Peter on, of course. But there's no chance of that coming back, is there, Jim?
Crank Yankers came back after 12 years.
Yep.
So who knows? You just never know. I remember when the show got canceled, we had an agent go to Hollywood and try to pitch the show. They'd still have to get the rights from VH1 because they own the rights, and nobody in Hollywood had any idea what the show was. Mm-hmm. It's so niche, it was on VH1 Classic, buried on channel 336. So it wasn't on regular VH1. So I don't know. Look, we did 140 episodes, 8 years.
Yep.
That's a lot in TV time.
Yeah, it is. Well, the other thing real quick was the Disgruntled Waiter series that you put together on YouTube about maybe 6 years ago. I loved that series. What was the genesis of that? Where did that come from? Just because you hating all these Facebook posts people used to make, or what was where'd that come from?
Yeah, I think so. It was just like, some character just being a dick. And I just shot a whole bunch new of them. I got a whole new series coming out of them. Awesome. I just shot, but it's almost and a lot of people can relate to it because they know what customers they're such assholes.
Oh yeah.
So it almost like that. I don't look like the dick, even though I'm being a dick.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, there's some. I might have some kind of like Meet the Creeps kind of sketch comedy show or whatever like that in the works. We're working on it right now, so we'll see. All that shit might be coming back.
That'd be great.
I mean, if Crankykers came back, and I think that metal show was just so unique, and who says never say never.
Well, that you don't know. I mean, the problem is that like people go, "What about Netflix?" Okay, well, Netflix has a documentary on Beyonce, which she's known in every household worldwide. We're gonna have Herman Rarebell on, the drummer from the Scorpions, that was on 5 albums, as our lead guest. Who on Netflix is going to tune into that? So we have to. It has to be in a little small. VH1 Classic was perfect. It was own little shitty channel, and no one bothered us there, and they just let the show run.
Yeah, well, I loved it. Anybody can find the episodes. I think they stream them. There's several places that I think VH1 will probably still stream as well. They're just fantastic. I totally recommend it because the pacing's good. You guys aren't on too long. It's like 30 minutes an episode or 20 minutes an episode, something like that. And you guys are tight and funny, and there's crowd interaction, and the music's good too. So it's got something for everybody. Real quick, got just a little quiz for you, Jim. It's called the Dirty Sex Act quiz. I want to name the sex act and see if you've heard the expression or you can explain it. One of them's called the Mississippi Bird Bath.
No idea what that is.
Okay, this is what I read, and Kayla, I apologize. It says, filling a southern girl's mouth with Kool-Aid and getting her on her hands and knees while you dip your balls in it. The other one is called the Spicy Gringo.
Don't know that one either.
Okay, it says stuffing a chick's ass with a volcano taco from Taco Bell and then eating it. It's awful stuff. And the last one is called the Boston George.
Don't know that one either. These must be new ones.
I guess so. This one says it's jizzing up a girl's nose and she snorts the cum.
Oh God! Ew! What?
Didn't make them.
I'd rather get a Blumpkin than that.
Well, that was one of the ones in there. There's some of them I had to leave off.
I'd rather take a hot box. It's horrible.
What's a hot box?
When you box somebody in with your fart under the covers.
Oh, that. Okay, yeah.
Isn't that a Dutch oven?
Yeah, Dutch oven.
Yeah,
maybe
okay.
I'm wrong.
They might change them here and there.
I'm sorry.
Any other questions, Sam?
I don't know.
Well, we're clean cut, of course. The only other question from the fans was, this is actually a little tough. Natalie P says, she asked, is Robin as batshit crazy in a relationship as she is normally? Because if you were a fan of the show, just as we were, you know how she could get. What was she like when you guys were together? I mean, was there any affectation dropped off, or
did you have
she
to
less
help
of
with
herself?
Charities?
Did I have to what?
Help with charities?
No, I think I went to the dog show or something.
Oh,
I remember
the Dog Academy Awards.
Yeah, because I remember them making fun of my suit. I'm like, I own one suit. I don't care. I was like, you got to get another suit. I go, I went into Men's Warehouse. I go, I want a suit that I can wear in August and February. Give me one.
Jim said he had 300 tour shirts and one suit.
I got 550 concert T-shirts and one suit. I still have one suit.
Okay. Well, this is a clip from that. Hold on. This is Artie talking a little bit about it.
I can understand it.
I guarantee Jim is the first guy Robin's dated who owns a Sabracadabra shirt.
I own 3 of them. There's a Black Sabbath tribute band. I hire them for parties. Whenever I have parties, I hire them to perform my party.
Really?
Yeah.
All right,
and for an extra $300, they'll put the outfits on. They'll look like Black Sabbath.
Yeah, they did my bachelor party. I had them and like 4 strippers in my friend's basement. It was unbelievable.
Well, So this is another clip from when you came back. And so like you dated Rob and then you went off you were allowed to come back. Cause some people have asked, were you given like the heave ho because she didn't want you on? And you, like, no, you did an appearance, at least one or two.
I did.
Maybe.
I did two after we broke up. So there was none of that. It was just, that's when the show was changing. I think the two times I came back, Artie was already off the show.
He's weird, but you two are very adult. I like that you.
We weren't
through
always. It was a little tough.
Yeah,
that's good. That's healthy. You see, I never do that kind of stuff. Like Robin could get angry and you can get angry and then you talk about it and you work things through. I don't do that.
Well, actually, I get angry and Jim talks things through.
You don't give up on her.
No, I don't.
Angry,
There was a point where I was gonna. I just said, "Look, I'm sorry, and I guess we're not gonna be friends." And yeah, it was at one point it was bad.
You like to be friends with the people.
Yeah, I'd like to. You have a relationship with somebody. I just don't like to cut them off and never see him again.
I feel you're a very sensitive guy. I do feel he's a sensitive guy. He is.
Mm-hmm.
He does care about people.
Got a big heart.
I care about Artie a lot, man.
You worried about Artie?
Yeah, absolutely.
Jim is a good friend to me. He always has been.
What do you mean?
Why don't you take his calls?
What?
Is that right, Robin?
So that comes out of nowhere, and then she's basically outing you, saying you're the one that broke up with her. Was it a situation where you were just not able to spend enough time together when you decided to, or was it like a clash of two worlds, and Crackfinger got in the way?
Well, yeah, no, she did. Look, all I know is. It was what was it, August, like 2007. I had to go back. I wrote this shit down because I knew Sam was going to bring it up. And I'm like, that's fine. But so it was August 2007. I go in there. My girlfriend's, death was like December 2006. So I didn't go on the show for like 8 months.
Yeah.
And I went on the show that day and I told the story because they all knew her. Howard knew her. One thing about Howard, people, whatever they say about him, he probably called me at least 5 times after her death just to talk to me, just to talk.
That's shocking.
At one point, I'm like, he's calling again? Holy shit. Like, yeah, he would just call, hey, what's going on, man? How you feeling? How's it going? And we just talk about whatever. He'd probably have 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then he would call again. Hey, Jim, just leave me a message. Give me a call when you can. Don't worry. He would just call to check in.
That's
like he would
fascinating.
Do that. I know. He did it for probably the first 3 months. And he said, dude,
but Jim, isn't that, the history, isn't that odd to you to think about that sort of gesture, and then you think about how he's treated other people, and isn't that just that, to me, that's bizarre.
I don't know. Look, he always liked me for some reason, right from the beginning he did. And even today, once in a while I'll email him, or maybe I was on Facebook or something like that. So it's not, it's still not strained or anything like that. It's not like we have any problem. I think when Metallica played at was it Harlem? What's that place in Harlem? The Apollo. Probably yeah. 6 years ago, I saw him there. We talked. That was the first time I saw him in a while and stuff. So, but anyway, getting back to, so he's like, hey, whenever you want to come on the show, if you want to tell your story, if you don't want to tell your story, it's fine too. And I said, all right. And then that was August 2007. I went on, I told the whole story. Mm-hmm. And, it was pretty tough for me to get out. And then we went to commercial break, and then we got back, and then we lightened up the mood. And Howard goes, hey, Jim, Robin's single. Jim, you're single. What about you guys going out? And then it was 45 minutes of us going, come on, you'll meet Jim's friends, Black Sabbath, Sabbath, all that shit.
Anthony Cumia.
Yeah, all this shit, just busting balls, Jim, I'll take you to go see, some tribute bands, whatever. And she goes, all right, fine, I'll go out with them. I'm like, holy shit. So it wasn't like I went in there asking. Yeah. They just started it with that. And I'm like, yeah, I'll go out. At that point, I know that she was it Mr. X? Mr. X, she was with for a long time. She broke up with him around the same time with my ex's thing. Yeah. So I think we both needed companions at that point. I really look back at it. I go, I needed someone. I was living with my mom at that time. I moved back with my mom. I was fucking devastated. I needed to be taken care of. And I needed someone just be around. I missed her. And Robin she got that long relationship, and we just started hanging out. It was just a hanging out for a while. Just as buddies.
It's interesting to me, too, during that time period, because Cumia was hanging out with Nicolini, that, the weather lady, right? And that whole saga happened, but you guys happened to have a concert together. You went up to a concert with Robin, and he went out with that weather lady.
Yeah.
And that whole thing ended in complete disaster. And was that before you guys broke up or after?
No, that was we were dating at that time.
So what did you guys think about that? And you went to the concert, and Jill Nicolini and Anthony broke up, and it was this whole thing on O&A because she blew her stack. He was cheating on her. She burned the clothes and a bunch of items. It was like all over O&A. So this was during the time before you broke up with Robin. What did you two have to say about this?
I don't even remember that. I mean, she wasn't following the show. I think it was like first. I remember taking her to Van Halen at Nassau Coliseum, and then it was like a K-Rock event. It was like a K-Rock concert with Stone Temple Pilots and another band.
Right.
And we were back like VIP area or whatever like that. And Anthony was there with Jill. So we just said hello. I knew Anthony, and I guess maybe that might have been the first time Robin met him. We just had a beer. We're just hanging out, whatever, waiting for the band to go on. And that was it. When that stuff went down, she never mentioned it. Like she didn't go, oh my God, I don't even think she knew. I mean, she must have, but I don't even remember talking about it.
It's so interesting because Jay Ellis, like even after all these years, he said something that was interesting. He said, Robin likes wild, crazy white guys like Steve-O. And he's like, you. And he said that. I was like, that's an interesting take. Keep going, though.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I don't know. For some reason, black women have always been attracted to me. I don't know why. They've always liked me for some reason. Maybe because like I'm a little wild and I don't know what it is, but I've always had that attraction, which is weird. But getting back to the Robin thing, so I just think at that point, like it was perfect timing for both of us. She needed a companion. I needed somebody at that time. We just started hanging out. We're going to dinner here and there and just hanging, and it just blossomed into something else. But ultimately, just like in every relationship, and it's tough for a comic, I work weekends, she works during the week, and, she's off on the weekends, and that's when I work.
Yeah.
And that ultimately was what doomed us. And I knew it would because I wasn't going to just stop doing stand-up.
Yeah.
Because, she had a lot of money and I didn't have to worry. I'm not Tom Arnold. I wasn't going to pull that bullshit or anything like that. I'm like, no, I'm just a dirty, raunchy nightclub comic still to this day, 15 years later. That's what I still love doing.
Well, there was one clip where Shuley came in and he said you were upset with him and because he basically blabbed about a story to Robin before you could tell her when it was going to be on the air. But then there were other issues with like Langford following you guys. How hard was that to seem like, Jesus, why the fuck are we being followed for content? Can't you have a life? There's a difference between celeb and that, which was basically the show doing that to you.
I just remember it was like the perfect storm because that was the Howard 100 News.
Yeah.
So Langford's like, okay, if you see Robin and Jim out, here's the hotline, call. And I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. And believe me, I don't like any of that stuff. Yeah. I live a low key life. If I got to go on radio shows or do podcasts or promote something, then I just chill. I'm not. So when all that stuff was happening, the worst was, one night there was hardly any place to go eat. So I go, let's just go here. I took her to Applebee's and someone called in and saw us in there. I'm like, oh man, Howard's going.
Oh man.
Like you took Robin to Applebee's. I'm like, yeah. I had a gift card. It was expiring. What was I going to do?
I used to like the Oriental chicken salad wrap personally when I was in high school.
So I'm like, shit, now people are fucking busting me wherever I take her. Now I got to take her somewhere fucking classy. So that was a little annoying. And then I'd work at night. So I'd wake up in the morning and there'd be voicemails. Oh, you turn on the show. They're talking about you. And then they were spotted here. They were spotted there. That got annoying because I was like, come on, man, I'm not in it for this stuff.
Right. And did she put the kibosh on that? Did she tell them behind the scenes, like, enough of that shit? Or did they know organically, like, hey, like, okay, enough's enough?
No, they did it till the end.
Fuck.
Wow.
Oh yeah, funny. Without a doubt. Yeah. And I remember going up there. I remember going up there like a week later. I had to go record something maybe for Ozzy's Boneyard, and Langford saw me in the hallway and he was following me around Sirius with the microphone sticking in my face.
Christ.
He's like, well, come on, give me a comment. I go, Steve, I got nothing for you. He's like, I'm going to keep following you. I'm like, come on, man.
I wish our press was as good as that now.
Yeah. No, so she never did that. She was just like, yeah, she it didn't really bother that much.
I got only one other question, Jim, and it's regarding miserable men. And I sent you the archive. I hope there's something good in there for you. But When you did finally stop doing the show, was it just because, well, hey, first of all, they weren't paying anybody, or was it the slog and the fact that, that you didn't feel it was necessary anymore?
No, they weren't paying us. I remember they said, start the show. It wasn't Howard. I think it was Tim Sabian.
Right.
Tim's like, all right, start the show up and we'll get the paperwork going and then we'll pay you. I'm like, all right. So we're doing it like Sunday nights, and it was like 4 or 5 months in.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I got to get paid. I'm coming to the city Sunday nights. I'm just getting back in town from my weekend gigs. So where the fuck's the money? No, we're working on it. I was like, all right, I'm walking away.
Oh, man.
That's shitty.
But
Really
that
shitty.
didn't come from Howard, though. That didn't go, Howard go, don't pay him. But serious, they're always slow with paperwork, with that company and stuff like that. But I just got to the point where I'm like, I don't want to do it anymore because I need to get paid if I'm going to go do it. But, they still kept doing the show, Levy and all those guys.
So it's a company that's like, a company. It's not like being paid under the table. They should have paid you.
Everything's got to be on the books and stuff. So I just got to the point where I was like, I don't want to work for free anymore. So that was it. But I wasn't mad. I'm like, all right, I'm out.
I get it. Yeah, you walked. Basically, I don't blame you. I would have done the same. But I was just curious about that. Sam, any other questions?
Only one more. Who was your favorite whack packer?
John the Stutterer.
Nice.
Bigfoot was for a while, but then he wasn't around enough.
No.
Yeah.
It is. But John the Stutterer, I still listen to the old clips on YouTube when Fred's mimic him and doing I. Oh my God. Even my kid loves it. My kid goes crazy. He's like, Dad, put that John the Stutterer clips on. He loves it too. So I think he was my favorite. Just to how dirty he was. Like, yeah, I'll eat her asshole. And then stuff like that. It's just, so I think he was my favorite. Beetlejuice was, I toured with him. He was just weird, so I wasn't crazy. He was okay. But I'd say John the Stutterer.
Oh, and the other thing was last thing. It was having to do similarly with the Killers of Comedy. You were doing that for a while, and then you stopped doing it. And it was a time when Levy explained that the show wasn't doing that well. And Artie was on the wrap-up show, kind of not speaking for you, but I guess in a sense, kind of saying that he doesn't. Maybe Jim and Nick don't want to be part of the circus of the atmosphere, and they just want to do stand-up, and they don't want what comes with it. What was that situation like? Did you just want to go do your own thing? Did you want to go smaller? Did you decide, fuck, the crowds are too nuts? What was the situation with the Killers of Comedy where you decided, no, I can't do that anymore?
That's exactly what it was. I didn't want, they're like, all right, watch Beetlejuice so he doesn't leave his hotel room. I'm like, I'm not a fucking babysitter. I'm not watching him.
Yeah.
And then everybody, the Iron Sheik was on the shows, and Gary the Retard, and Yucko, and everyone's they're supposed to do like 10 minutes, and everyone's doing like 25 minutes, and they're not even doing well. And I'm like, I just want to go up there and tell jokes, man. This sucks. So that's when I got to the point where I'm not doing it anymore. This is so unprofessional.
Okay.
But it was a freak show. So I wanted to do stand up, and I'm like, I take that shit serious. I'm like, do your time, get the fuck off the stage, and that was it. And it's like, you got the Iron Sheik out there, and then you got dildos on stage from Yucko and all this shit. Nothing against Yucko. I like Yucko. We got along great. But it was just too much of a freak show.
Yeah. Well, that's brutal, but I'm glad we got the inside scoop from you. But I want to just say thank you so much for being part of the show, and thank you for agreeing to be interviewed. And it was great. It was great. We hope you had a great time.
No, it was great. Absolutely. It brought up a lot of old memories. Like those clips you were playing, I don't remember that stuff. Like when Robin was in that clip and she was saying we had a little rough spot when we broke up. I don't even remember that. Like, I don't even remember getting in an argument with her, but I guess we did because she was saying, yeah, we're a little rough, but now we're fine.
If there's anything you're looking for and you want to hear, let me know, and I'll do my best to find it for you and send it to you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no problem. But no, it was great. It was good reminiscing about the old days and stuff. But look, the bottom line with Howard is the guy made my career. If it wasn't for him, who knows what I'd be doing right now. I got everything in my career from being on that show.
Right.
He took a chance on like I said in another article on misfit toys. Like I didn't want to go the David Letterman clean 7-minute stand-up comedy route.
When you say that, he did the misfit toys and launched the comics, and you clearly know he's not doing that anymore. Do you like when you hear shows like ours?
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely. But you know, people changed, the show changed. It wouldn't make sense for, like, Joe Rogan's the one doing that now. Joe Rogan's the one breaking comics.
Right.
You know, you go on there, you do a couple appearances, you start selling out everywhere. That's when I first went on Howard, and I think the second and third time, I sat in on a Thursday and Friday. It was my second and third appearance. And they just plugged it. I was at the Funny Bone in Pittsburgh. I sold out 5 shows. That's what Joe does now. He finds these young comics, brings them on, gives them exposure. So, do you wish that Howard and Joe, like, if he could, like, Howard, I guess, kind of like put down his guard about feeling, I don't know, some sort of narcissistic way about Joe, that they could have some sort of, I guess, reunion, or just, you know, how he shit on podcasts? Or do you think that's like an impossible thing that could never happen? I think it could happen if they got in the same room. But Joe lives even though, you know, he lives a quiet life too. He just wants to be a comic. I know he does his podcast and he has some controversial guests on, but he's just a comic. He loves to hang with comedians. He's opened his own club in Austin and stuff. It's going to open in a couple months. Oh yeah,
I heard all about it. It sounds exciting, actually.
Yeah, so he just loves hanging out with the comic. I hung with him like 4 months ago down in Atlantic City because Joey Diaz opened for him. We hung till like 6 a.m. That must be the first time I smoked weed in 20 years.
Wow.
Shut up, really?
Well, yeah, I mean, it actually took more than one hit, you know.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so but yeah, so I don't, you know, if they ever got in the same room, I'm sure they'd be fine. I don't think they hate each other, you know, so who knows? But like I said, everything I got is, I always tell my son, I go, look, I live in this house because of Howard Stern. So I always say that to him because I got everything from that show. So I can't say anything bad about the guy because he was never a dick to me. And, you know, I was on the show for 10 years and I look at it like he gives a guy a launching pad and then he goes, okay, go on your own. I'm letting you go. I'm going to bring somebody else on. I'm going to give them the spotlight. I gave you enough and now you move on and you have to take advantage of it.
Do you think that the people who are on the show still, who you even have remote associations with or even don't anymore, do you think that they kind of mourn the loss of like what the creativity and kind of like what the show was when everyone loved it, including yourself?
Probably. I'm sure they do. But, you know, as you get older, you want to work less. You don't want to, you know, that guy, I mean, back in the day when he was with Allison living in the basement, you know, and doing the Channel 9 show and doing all that, he was working his ass off. And I guess as you get older, you're like, I want to take it easy. So it's not like the same show where there's just some craziness going on. So I get it.
Right.
You know, it's like a band. Like a band put like 10 amazing albums out, and then the last few haven't been that great. I'm still going to listen. I'm still going to listen to the old 10, the first 10. So that's the way I got to look at it, you know. But the guy, if it wasn't for him, I don't even know. I'd probably be playing a firehouse. I might not even be in the business. So that's the way I look at it, you know, because everything, people hear me on that. I got Inside the NFL on HBO for a season. I was on there. I got Crank Anchors because of it. Even that metal show, they knew me from Stern. So everything pretty much I got in my career was because of the show.
Totally.
And people still come all the time because I'm almost like a classic rock act now on the road. They just know me from back in the day on the Stern show. So they'll still come and see me in all these cities. Dude, I remember you back on the Stern show. Those were great with Artie and Tor and all those crazy stories. So I still do well just from being on that show years later.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Just quickly, Jim, any plugs you want to give before, not for anything recent, but anything like that's going to be in the next couple of weeks?
Oh, well, yeah, my Terrorizing Telemarketers Volume 7 is out. It was a #1 comedy album for like 3 weeks.
Perfect.
On iTunes. That's out. Me and Don Jameson doing the same prank calls. We're still childish and immature. And my latest comedy special, Bite the Bullet, is on Amazon Prime. You can rent it or buy it.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
He was like a monster guitar.
That's classic Ozzy, too, when he comes in. Mr. Crowley! The video, he's like got the hands up. Yeah. I'm the devil. I'll take your kids' souls from you.
Don't you think?
Mr. Crowley!
Don't you think Ozzy does that hands out thing because he's got like sort of a Christ complex?
Well, probably. Now I think it's the lip.